Would you like to provision users access to Fortigate using a Windows Active Directory server? LDAP to the rescue! In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up a Windows Active Directory server acting as an LDAP authentication server on Fortigate. So let's take a look at the network diagram that we're going to be working on today. So we have the firewall FortiGate. The internal LAN IP address is the 10.1.1.10. We're using a 24 subnet mask, so we have 254 hosts available. And then behind the firewall, or on the LAN side of things, we have a domain controller, an Active Directory server, and the IP is the 10.1.1.254. So now we can go to the domain controller here, and we're going to open the Active Directory users and computers. The first step is to create a service account. So we're going to do a right click, user. Let's give you a name to this user. I'm going to call it FortiLDAP. Then we're going to enter a password. Uncheck the user must change password next login, because this is not a user account. We're going to use it as a service account. Then we're going to open the user or the service account in this case, and we go to the account tab. We're gonna change some accounts options here. So one of them is the password never expires. We don't want to expire this password since this is a service account, not a user account. And by default, the account expires, it sets to never. So last thing we have to do with this user or service account is to limit the control or the access that the domain controllers provide by default. So we're going to select delegate control by doing a right click on top of the service account organizational unit. Then we're going to click next. Let's find the 40 LDAP service account. And then the only task that we want for this guy is to read all user information. All right, so we can go ahead and open the group section. And from here we can go and we're going to create a new group. And this group will be used for administrators that will be accessing the FortiGate with admin access. So it's going to be 40 admins, the name of the group. Now that we are here, we're going to add an existing user or AD user to this SG or security group. All right, that should be all from the domain controller. Let's move to the FortiGate admin console. From here, we're going to select user and authentication, LDAP servers, create new. I'm going to call it ADDC. The IP address is, let's see here, 10.1.1.254. All right, for this purpose, for this lab purposes, I'm going to be using the regular LDAP protocol, but definitely if you want to integrate or do this implementation on a production environment, I recommend to use the LDAP secure protocol instead. In that way you can encrypt the whole content of the LDAP packet or header. The common name identifier, by default we have the CN attribute, but since this is a Windows based LDAP server, we're going to use the SAMA account attribute instead. All right, the bind type will be regular, and now is where we're going to add the service account that we just created. However, we can't just type 40.ldap, that won't work. The FortiGate expect to have the username entered as a distinguished name. So let's go back to the domain controller and open the Active Directory users and computers. And then we go to service accounts. Make sure that you have the advanced features enabled, otherwise this workaround will not work. So you're gonna open the user and then go to the attribute editor tab and scroll down until you see the distinguished name. So here you're gonna double click on it. Let's copy the distinguished name. That's basically the full path where the service account is located within the domain tree. We just paste it there. And now we're gonna copy the password. And now we should be able to browse this guy. Let's see. Yep. So that means that we were able to authenticate using this service account to query the domain controller tree, the whole forest. So by just clicking on browse and clicking OK, you should be able to add the, oh, I'm sorry. There you go. You should be able to add the distinguished name of this domain controller, or domain, I should say. We can also try test connectivity, should be successful at this point. Then we can test user credentials. So I'm going to test with one of the AD users that basically is part of the FortiAdmins security group. All right, so we're able to successful test the authentication. Okay, so now we can save the configuration here. All right, so the next step is to map a local group on the FortiGate with the FortiAdmins security group that we have or we created on the domain controller. We're going to user groups, create new. Let's call this the exact same name. It doesn't have to be the same name, but I would like to have everything nice and clean. So we're gonna call it 40-admins, and then on the remote groups, we're gonna click add. We're gonna select the LDAP server, the domain controller, and from the search bar, you can just type 40 and then press the magnifier. And as you can see, I was able to query the FortiAdmins security group on the domain controller. So you're gonna do a right click, add selected, and then click OK. And that's it. So now we have mapped a local group on the FortiGate to the FortiAdmins security group on the domain controller. So the last step is to create a administrator group that's going to be more intuitive instead of having multiple admins enter it locally. So we're going to call this group 40admins, and then we're going to select match all users in a remote server group. And then this is depends on your flavor or needs, but in this case the purpose of this group is to allow specific users that are part of the FortiAdmins group from the domain controller to be super admin or to have super admin privileges on the FortiGate firewall. So what we need to do is basically select the profile, and then the remote user group should be the mapped FortiAdmins group. All right, so we did that. Last but not least is to test if the solution worked as expected. I'm going to open a private window, and I'm going to access the FortiGate web console. And this time, instead of using the local admin account, I'm going to use my AD user account. And as you can see, we were able to log in with our AD user credentials on the FortiGate admin console. If you like the content of this video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thanks.